In today's episode of HR Visionaries, I talk to Jeanette from 8x8. We talk about the importance of candidate and employee experience. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hire, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to our latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm looking forward to my guest today, Jeanette. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
Oh, Benjamin, it's delightful to be with you today.
I'm very excited to speak to you today. Jeanette, can you give us a bit of background? Who are you in like 5 or 6 sentences?
So my name is Jeanette Winters. I am the Chief Human Resource Officer here at 8x8. 8x8 is an integrated telecommunications company based here in Silicon Valley, California, which is where I'm speaking to you from today. I have been in the HR field more than 20 years, and it is really the passion of helping others become their best selves that brings us to talking today. So I really look forward to our chat.
Wow, that's it's a very nice starting punchline. So I really like that. Can you tell us a bit about what does what does 8x8 then actually mean in terms of, well, the name, the brand, or what does it actually mean?
Yeah, it talks about reliability. And so what you want is it's 99.9999 or 8 places on the decimal scale of uptime of a platform. And that is what we strive for. 8 decibels, 8 days a week. And that's really where we are. But what it really refers to is the importance of the platform, whether it's voice, chat, video, or our call centers, contact center support. All of that does require uptime that is impeccable, and that's what we strive for.
Okay, that's an amazing story. I really like that. Jeanette, can you tell us a bit about your CV? What have you done prior to becoming HR leader in in the HR space in general?
Yeah, I have really spent a lot of time in education. It's really what brings us to speaking today. I have an earned doctorate in public policy and policy analysis. And what I've done with that is really look at workforce issues. And workforce issues comes down to the individual, to the team, a function, an entire company. And that's really where I've spent my career. If I were to summarize the types of things that I've been asked to do, it's really a 3-legged stool. Productivity, again, individual, all the way up to and including the company, technology and its appropriate use. And then thirdly, it is change and change management. Anytime that you bring in technology, things change. And so we really need to make sure that we're supporting people through that. And that's really what I do in HR, as an executive coach, even as a faculty member at universities, which I have done. And all of that has brought me to where I am today. I was very fortunate in that I started my career with Intel right out of graduate school and spent nearly a decade there. Then went on to American Express and was charged and chartered to reinvent their customer experience. And we looked at everything from training and job descriptions and who we were hiring and how we were approaching the service experience. And we made it our goal to provide extraordinary customer experiences. And both of those those roles really cemented in me, whether it is on the technical side or on the service side, that we're obligated, wherever we are, to really bring our best foot forward in both arenas. And that's what brings me to where I am today.
A super exciting story. And well, having a background in education, how much does that shape your work on a day-to-day basis?
Well, other than that is the calling card, if you will, it's what has enabled me to have the right to do the work that I do. But I've made it one of my lifelong goals to be a lifelong learner. And so I am always, each year I have a 3-part objective for the year, and one of them is a learning journey. I've done a lot in the area of coming to understand neuroscience, learning, and leadership. And that's really important to me because around the world, we spend billions of dollars helping people learn and lead in their best capacity, only to find out, if you do some research, it's unfortunately money that doesn't always see a return on investment. And I just figured there had to be a better way. And coming to understand how the adult brain works, well, that's exactly what I've come to understand. And while I am not a neuroscientist, I am very much a student of science. And I think that's really what, as far as I could go, but I use that knowledge to help frame both leadership solutions and learning solutions. And frankly, that's a lot of what we do, not only here at 8x8, but frankly, in all of human resources today.
Indeed, so you mentioned enabling people to make the very best out of their qualities or their skills. That's something very fulfilling, right?
Well, as I mentioned, I am a certified executive coach, and this is something that I've done for almost 15 years now. And where I was trained, we used a framework of positive psychology. And that's important, Benjamin, because the basic premise there is that we are all due to be our best selves. And people will often say, well, what is my best self? That's for you to decide and for me to help as a coach or as an HR executive to help organizations become their best selves, right?
I really like this tone of positivity, given it's, I think, so supportive when you have somebody around who is very positive, who encourages you to do something great. I think also as a team lead, you're basically like a coach, right? So in many ways, to enable your team members to become the very best. And therefore, being a coach is very much like a manager and vice versa, isn't it?
Oh, I absolutely believe that. In fact, one of the basic tenets of what we teach here about leadership and management is that you are a coach, not only of your direct reports, but the people around you. You know, business, community enterprises, education, they are all team sports. And they really do require all of us to lean in and contribute. And that's why, whether we're coaching people that report to us or coaching even our colleagues or our bosses, we need to make sure that we're helping them, equip them with whether it's information, data, experience, or a sense of context so that they can understand what we've got going right at the moment. I think that's really important. And coaching has just been an absolute asset to me and to my toolkit that I use each and every day.
When you talk to your team members and to other stakeholders, how do you approach this task, like in the very first step, to well, to help them become better people, become more
Well,
productive employees?
Benjamin, it's interesting because I will often tell people that as a prerequisite to our discussion, go stand in front of a mirror and look at that person looking back at you for 5 minutes.
You know what? I got new glasses and I was like, oh gosh, I remember this guy differently.
There you go. There you go. And so the thing is, most people can't look in a mirror for 5 minutes. Now, it maybe takes me 3 or 4 minutes to put my eye makeup on in the morning or put my contacts in. But when I say look in the mirror and to see who's looking back at me, whether we have contacts on, new glasses, or maybe we're just using the same filter that we've always used, it's important to know who's looking back at us. And that's really where I start at. And people will say, oh, that made me very uncomfortable. And right there, I know that there's dissonance between who they expect to see and who actually is looking back at them. And that's usually the beginning point for a very productive conversation. And if somebody says, I know every jot and tittle of the person I was looking at, I then challenge them to go further because they know what they know today. And every day we should be looking for new and expanded views, not only on ourselves, but the world around us. Be open to new information all the time.
A very interesting starting point, but what's the next step then? So, well, being conscious of yourself is, I think, super important step. But I'm very curious, how do you continue there?
And so one of the things as a coach, and this really is something that I utilize as a leader, is to say, what are your objectives? And that's often a very interesting conversation. People will say, I aspire to be the CEO, or I aspire to be a writer, or, you name it. And that people come to us and they have goals and objectives for themselves. Now, as a coach and as a leader, my job is to align sense of self with goals and objectives so people can go down a path and hope to get there. If someone wants to be the CEO, for example, a very tough job, I might add, and not one I aspire to, but because I've worked with CEOs, I know what's asked of them, what's expected of them, able to make tough decisions, be able to read the market, read the competitive environment. And if someone is not capable or trained to do that, then I'll say, if you want to be a CEO, here are the skills and the experiences that you'll need. And then, we'll continue from there. How does one get those experiences or gather those skills? But it really is designed to align sense of self with goals and objectives and really enable those people to get to where they want to go. If you think about it, human resource management is just the same thing. My job is to help everyone here to be their best selves. And even if that means not being here at 8x8, I have long believed not every person is meant for every company, and not every company is meant for every person. Now, an important caveat, we're not talking about bad people, we're talking about bad fit. And so it's really up to the individual to make sure they're clear about what they want so the company has a chance of helping them get where they wish to go.
I think it's a super important thing you just said. So it's not about, good or bad. It's just about, fit or no fit, which is then like kind of neutral in the sense, okay, there's no fit. And also when it comes to goals, you probably have a number of situations where you might wonder, the goals a person has in mind too ambitious, or is it like a lack of ambition? Do you often encounter this?
Well, what is ambition? It's desire to accomplish. And sometimes the first, and I don't think it's the first objective, is to align ambition and objective with where someone is at and where they wish to go. We really need to align, is that really what they want? And make sure that the journey they're about to embark on is really where they want to go. I will also often tell candidates that are interviewing for jobs here, particularly my executive candidates, you interview us as much as we interview you, because this is a two-way street. Make certain that this is a good experience for you and the right one in the next leg of your journey. And people will say, are you trying to dissuade me? No, but what I'm trying to get you to do is really put on your critical thinking hat, because that's what we need to do. And so rather than evaluate one's ambition for whether it's too ambitious or not ambitious enough, let's align on where someone is, where they want to go, and why. And I was talking to a colleague the other day, and she's got two very young children. They're 2 and 4. And, she's an executive in her own right. And somebody said, well, would you ever think about being a CEO? And she said, I'm still changing diapers. And I elbowed her and said, that's what you're doing today. Your toddler is going to be, in the next phase of their life in less than a year. So then what do you want to do? And we had this very rich conversation about where she sees herself going. It was really a delightful experience. And she really has thought very carefully about where she wants to go next and what she wants to do. And she is so keen on bringing change to the organization in the function that she leads. And she's got very specific objectives for that, because she knows it will change the culture of the company that she works for. And I thought, that is great. That's exactly the sort of projection that I try to encourage in people, no matter whether they're one of our employees or a coaching client or someone that I meet and chat with casually.
Allow me to stick a bit with the ambition part. I find that so incredibly interesting. As I think everyone knows people with perhaps no articulated ambition. Perhaps that's the best way to put it. Like, people that are very able, very skilled in your team, as stakeholders, somebody you just care for, has certain skills, could be very able, however, perhaps lacks ambition, or other people who are destined, if you put it negatively, destined to fail, given their ambitions are like, okay, to the moon. But how do you align those ambitions? You don't want to also frustrate people in like, hey, you can become everything, so I would perhaps not become an Olympic swimmer, I guess. So I'm a bit too old for that, I guess.
But you could become a master swimmer. So if you said, I want to be a competitive swimmer, and, I want to swim on the Olympic team, you and I might say, well, what is the average age of the Olympic competitors? And, they're probably in their 20s. If you're Michael Phelps, maybe you get to 30. But, so maybe you're beyond the point of, even if you have the talent, of aspiring to be on the Olympic team. So if you're not doing that, what else could you do with swimming? You could coach other younger swimmers. You could become a master swimmer. There's a global master swimmer program, which is really quite exciting. The key is And this is part of my leadership philosophy of getting to yes without saying yes to what someone wants. So you may want to be an Olympic swimmer, and I'm going to say, Benjamin, well, what's, and working through that. And then you finally say, yeah, I guess I'm too old for that. Never mind, I don't know how to swim yet. And say, okay, well, let's start the journey. If swimming is really a pull for you, let's start where you are. I call it meeting people where they come. You don't know how to swim? Let's start there. Let's get you swimming. And, how exciting is that? And then you may say, well, is that going to make me an Olympic swimmer? Well, stranger things have happened, but not likely. But you'll be able to swim, and maybe you'll be able to compete in other avenues, in other venues, other than just the Olympics. So again, it's helping people align where they are with what they want. And maybe they've got a label on it that is unrealistic, but that doesn't mean they can't pursue what they want to do. And, my job as a leader, as a coach, as an instructor is always to help people take that next step. And you meet people where they are, and then you say, here's your objective, let's go in this direction.
It's super cool story and a super cool example. How do you make sure that everyone in your team has this positive attitude, and how can you transport this to other people?
Well, many people come with a positive outcome, but everybody comes with a different style. Mm-hmm. And so people will be very data oriented, and somebody will say, well, that might be viewed as being very negative. I don't see it that way. They're providing data. Let's look at the data and see what we learn. And there's always room for ahas, those surprises that are delightful or maybe a bit challenging. Our job is to deal with them. And my objective every day, as it is with every person that works with me, is to leave the place a little better than we found it when we arrived in the morning. So when I go home at night, and today I'm in our corporate headquarters, so I'm in an office, not in my home office. When I shut the door tonight, I will stop, I'll pause and say, is the place better because of the work we did today? I'll go through a mental checklist. I'll say, we did X, Y, and Z, and we are a bit better. If we can say that individually and collectively every day, think of how much progress is going to be made at the end of a week and never mind the end of a month. And I've got very committed colleagues that stand with me side by side. And yes, some of us can get pessimistic at times, or some of us might even disagree, but we firmly believe here in disagree and commit. And so if the majority agrees on a subject, it's our job to disagree, then commit and move forward. And so that deals with pessimism at its source, which is disagreement in my mind.
I really like that. You mentioned before that you worked a lot on customer experience, improving customer experience. And I was wondering, so with a lot of things back of my mind, you just said like, well, it's about in an interview, not just vetting a candidate, but it's also the candidate finding out who we are. So it's also them interviewing us. With your background in focusing on customer experience, what does it actually mean with regards to candidate experience? So how important is that for you guys?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. And about 6 weeks ago, we embarked on a new journey where we are looking at the employee life cycle as the heart of what we do in HR. And there's lots of other things we do, but let's look at the employee life cycle from the very first contact we have with a candidate to their very last day of employment. We want to integrate our values, our mission, our expectations for behavior, and make sure that everyone is growing and developing each and every day. And so with this new journey, what we're doing is we're aligning different parts of the corporate experience in a consolidated journey, which we're just defining, and we are just building. But already it's had some very exciting results in that we remind ourselves from the first point of contact with a candidate. That may be looking at our Glassdoor front page, or our LinkedIn company page, or how we frame all of our job descriptions. We've just finished an enormous project. We rewrote every single job description in the company.
Well,
because we want to imbue in people the spirit and culture that 8x8 represents. And we said, well, if we don't start with us hiring people committed to that, it's hard to change their orientation. And so again, even our job descriptions now better reflect the company that we are, the service we provide. I'll tell you an interesting story, and this really gets to my philosophy on customer experience. I have, 30,000 followers and contacts on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people, and last week someone reached out and said, Jeanette, I'm having trouble with a call issue on my 8x8 platform. And I said, okay, let me get you to our head of customer service, Walt Weisner, just an amazingly talented man. And I said, we'll get somebody to you within the hour. Well, I called Walt. I said, Walt, a friend of mine reached out to me on LinkedIn. I told him you'd reach out in an hour. He goes, do better than that. I'm calling him now. So Walt reached out. We found out what it was, and literally within the hour, the issue that he was struggling with had been resolved. And so it wasn't a big deal technologically from a service perspective, but it was a big deal to this individual. And the truth is, I didn't even know my friend had the 8x8 platform. So he calls me later in the day, and his name is Dean. And Dean said, you must be really important, because somebody reached out to me literally 5 minutes after you and I spoke. And I said, no, Dean, I'm not important. You are. And he said, I said, our job is to serve you. And he said, wow, that's the lesson for the day. And he and I both chuckled, and I said, look forward to seeing you next month. We are part of a group that gets together twice a year. But that was important to me, that he understood he was treated in a manner consistent with how we see our customers. That is why we are here.
It's a very inspiring story indeed. Given I also do, in our podcast, we talk to many people where the idea of customer and client or the candidate centricity becomes more and more aligned, given it's then the idea of just one kind of company experience. So rather, you being candidate or a customer. So in your role, you're talking to customers. However, you treat them a bit like candidates. An amazing trend, I think.
Absolutely. And so our aspiration in terms of treatment and engagement with candidates is so that they will say, whether they work for us or not, I was really well treated at 8x8 when I applied for a job. If they treat their customers as well as they treat their candidates, I want to give them a shot. And again, because it's a reflection I just hired a person who's going to be the architect for that employee life cycle journey. We had 2,600 applicants for that job. And so, there are people that knew me, that knew 8x8, that have true commitment in this arena. And so what I did was to ensure that those candidates were appropriately responded to, that they knew what we were doing and when, and if they weren't being moved along, why. And so again, engaging candidates with the same level of commitment that they engage with us. And that's the table stakes. I want to be doing as much as candidates are doing when they apply for a position here.
How has this changed over the years?
Well, I think that for many years, a company would say, I have the job, my way or the highway. And there's not very many avenues in life, my way or the highway. I can't even think of one right at the moment. And so we all have to work in a global connected sense. And that's really what is going to enable us to make progress. It really is that global connected sense. And that's not easy. We have 11 strategic sites. We have people in, I don't know how many countries. We serve 150 companies around the world, or some incredible number. But we are a global company. We've got more people internationally than we do here in the United States, even though the US is where we are headquartered, because we recognize that we serve people around the globe, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Europe, greater Europe, or whether it's in North and South America. So for us, we want the candidate experience to mirror a great customer experience.
I'm wondering, what kind of role will technology play in providing for a great customer and also, of course, candidate experience going forward?
Well, it's really interesting. I have been a fan of technology literally while I was in undergraduate program at the American University, and watch them automate things and bring computer technology to bear to solve really intractable problems. And I know the power of technology. And I often, my husband and I joke about my doctoral dissertation, all 300 pages of it. At the time, I spent a year and a half running reels of tape on a computer in a hardened defense contractor computer center that I worked for as a graduate student. And now that data, I can get it on my phone, and it's mind-boggling to me. And so the thing that I think distinguishes extraordinary experiences is not the technology alone, but it's the wrapper that we put around it. And I don't know about you, but you get stuck in these endless, loops of, customer service. And, I'm sorry, I didn't get that number. It's like, after a while, you want to wrap the productivity of technology together with the human experience that makes us be feeling seen and heard. That really, in my mind, is the key, don't you think?
Exactly. And I think people are not asking for a feature, people ask for a solution, right? So I have a problem, I have an issue. I don't want like 10 paths presented to me. I want a solution in that moment. And I think that's also why people matter so much in HR in general, because it's in the end understanding very well what the opposite wants and how to serve this, how to cater those people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's the service mindset
Mhm.
that we really need to focus on. And in my mind, if we are not service oriented from the get-go, that's where we're going to have trouble, whether it's aligning the human wrapper around technology or whether it is that interaction between two humans. And it is that intent of appearing in a positive manner, and not not Pollyanna. We're not all looking for blue skies and and four-leaf clovers. But what we really are trying to do is to say, yes, together we can do better and more than what we could do otherwise. And that is, in my mind, our objective as humans. It is, we need to make sure we are connecting and that we don't allow technology to become a source of isolation and not bringing us together. That's the key in my book.
Well, given your incredible positive attitude, I wanted to ask you, what was the situation you consider um, being one of the greatest learning opportunities for you? That, well, I think we all have these experiences where it was like a bit of unpleasant in the situation, but looking back, it was incredibly helpful in shaping one's personality, shaping one's career.
When I was at Intel, and I worked with manufacturing, creating people processes to allow them to really align their strategic intent of delivering as many microprocessors as the market demanded with our capacity to deliver. And it's a highly regulated working environment, and one that requires a great deal of skill. And we had to keep very good data on all the training, on any excursions that occurred, so that we could train or retrain, upskill, reskill individuals to make sure that it was as safe an environment as we could possibly make it. And I remembered that one day my boss said to me, I want you to acquire a platform that will make it easier for us to gather this data. And so I took my pen, I said, okay, that's great. I'm taking notes on what my boss wanted, and I went and did it. And so about 6 weeks later, my boss called me in and said, you've got some people that are very unhappy. And I said, really, am I taking too long? And he said, quite the opposite. You're going too fast. And I said, sir, you told me to install this system. And he said, yes, but you need to bring people along with you. He said, Jeanette, you can run faster than they can because you know what the objectives are. You know what the tools can do. You need to bring them along. And I sat back and I thought, I had never thought of pace or bringing people along as an essential element. My objective was very clear. My boss said, do it. I was doing it. I failed to understand that to do it, I needed to evaluate pace and then bring people along with me. One of my colleagues at graduate school at the University of Southern California once told me, go slow to go fast. And I thought, oh, that is so apt. And as I reflect on that incident, I can tell you that to this day, whether it's a single meeting, whether it is a discussion I'm having or a performance review I'm giving, I need to make sure my pace is appropriate for the environment, for the issue, and for the people that I'm working with. And that's very hard. I love to get things done. And so, it's like, okay, great, let's go, let's run hard. I can do that. The thing is, you have to bring people along with you. And I understand that now. but I have to harness to make sure I'm not outrunning people just because I can.
Okay, we're running a bit of time, but I have to ask this. How do you do this? So how do you make sure that, well, your pace is aligned with the other people's pace? Because I in my own experience, would say that very many people fail in recognizing or appreciating, perhaps that's also a separate issue, well, to understand whether their pace is different than the other people's pace.
So one of the things when I first engage, let's say that a group of us get together and we have an issue that we have to address. My natural behavioral profile, I walk in, I don't even count to 5. What's the issue? How are we going to get it done? What are we going to do? I now know that there are other people that will wait. Mm-hmm. They will look to people in the room, perhaps by title, perhaps by subject matter expertise, maybe by tenure, or maybe they're just louder than others. But there are people that will wait. My job, because I know that I launch very quickly, is to stop and say and turn and encourage people to contribute. What are your thoughts on this issue? How do you see us moving forward collectively in the best manner possible? So it is acknowledging in my own head and guiding my behavior. I know how I want to get moving and getting things done. My job is to stop and interact with the people to get their best, because truthfully, the sum is always greater than the parts. So I know that if I listen to others, and yes, they may be processing and they may be on an entirely different frequency than I am, by listening and learning with and through them, what the work that I do ultimately is going to be significantly enhanced and improved. And that's what I try to do.
Jeanette, I have one last question indeed, which is, we have a new category. So I ask my guests, so what would you like to pose as a question to a HR leader who's going to appear in the future on our podcast? So what would your question be to this HR leader?
Well, it's the great question, I think, of our time, and that is, how do we engage remote employees?
Wonderful.
We are a hybrid working organization, and that is a challenge, particularly when it's not in one geography, but it is worldwide. And so I'm always looking for new information in that area. How do we engage a worldwide remote operation? So if your guests can help solve that, we'll all be infinitely better off.
I'm sure about that. Jeanette, thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you. Great pleasure indeed.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day, Benjamin. And to all of your listeners, remember, learn something new every day.
Okay. Well, I have nothing to add here. Thank you so much for listening in, and see you next time.
Take care. Bye now.